Hi, I'm Ed Sussenguth, Communication Systems, Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. How did I meet John? I'd been at IBM for a couple of years, the normal kind of IBM, you know, wingtip shoes and that sort of stuff. Then I moved into this project where John was, and I had an office. John was on one side, and another woman by the name of Elaine Bohm, who unfortunately has passed away, was on the other side. Now, as you know, John was different than many people. Maybe on the, is roue an acceptable word to use in this sort of thing? Well, John was and Elaine was. And here I come in out of the Ivy League, you know, and I got these two on either side. And John would show up in the office and he'd ramble on something which I thought I was supposed to know. And I said, cripes, what am I into now? That's how I first got introduced to John. And it's been like that ever since. It's just been, but the fact that there were two of them, both alike, one on either side, was just an absolutely amazing introduction to Dr. Cocke. Fun guy, great guy. Oh no, we worked very closely together for, I guess it was 1964 to 1967 or something like that on the ACS project in California. I was doing machine organization and architecture, and of course John was doing everything, in particular machine organization and architecture. And so we worked very closely together, and so it wasn't just down the hall kind of things. And it's been since that time, however, it's been just kind of a hit and miss. We'd see John every now and then, and he'd have 8 or 9 new ideas on something that I didn't think he knew anything about. Was it hard moving to California? No. Up until that time, we'd always lived in the East, but it really turned out great. We loved it. We were there for about 4.5, 5 years. It's just a gorgeous part of the country. We really loved it. The kids were young. That time we did a lot of camping. The work was great. Moved around a couple of times since then, been down here in North Carolina now for 20 years. So we lived lots of places with IBM, and it's just been great. California was absolutely wonderful. No, we didn't really mind it and loved it while we were up there. The living there was great, as well as the work. The work environment was terrific. It was just... Yeah. Well, sort of. I'd been in research when it was in Poughkeepsie, and then we moved to here and then to there. When they found out that they decided to build the building in Yorktown, anyone who was in research was fair game to be moved. So we got moved every 3 weeks to some warehouse or some other place, Mohansig or Hill Street or High Street, doesn't matter. We just bounded all around Poughkeepsie area until Yorktown was built. And that settled it down a little bit. We weren't there too long, and then off to California.
Do you know that John wanted to go too?
Oh, I know John was delighted with the project and really wanted it. And Jack Bertram, of course, who really was the spearhead of the whole thing, brought a group of about 10 of us or so, and then gathered other people from the West Coast, and some other people then came in from Poughkeepsie and like that. Jack really was the guy who really brought the core of really incredible people together. John being the intellectual leader on everything. Didn't matter. It was whether it was the machine design or whether it was compilers or whether it was solid state. Remember, solid state was just getting started in those days. All those kind of things and the capability of that. He was really the intellectual leader in each of those kind of categories, which was the first time I'd really had any feeling that anybody could understand that much about so many things. One time, fairly early in my IBM career, I was in Germany one time and was meeting with, happened to be a young woman in her office, and it happened that the phone rang and 2 other people came in the office at the same time, and this person started speaking 4 languages coherently 4 different subjects in 4 different languages at the same time. That amazed me. And then she explained it's just a very natural thing because that's the way they grew up. In some sense, that's a lot like John Cocke. He speaks solid-state physics to the physicist. He speaks pure mathematics to the mathematicians. He talks about compilers to compiler people. He does lithography to the photolithography people. And he does it all kind of simultaneously. He can carry on 3 or 4 conversations all at the same time. In the same sense as this woman in Germany was doing it in languages, John does it in different areas of technology. And it's not just technology. He knows all about golf and baseball and history and everything. It's just, somehow that relationship back in Germany with the person speaking the 3 or 4 or 4 languages, I thought was kind of an interesting parallel to the way John is able to carry on. What about golf and John? John, as you know, grew up in...
I don't know anything, so try to think about.
Oh.
No,
One of the places John grew up in when he was a younger man was in the mountains of western North Carolina. And his family lived near a golf course. I've had the privilege of being out and played with John out on the same golf course. And I guess he was pretty good. I guess he was a pretty good golfer. Really enjoys the game, kind of thing. Skis. I guess skiing and golf are his 2 major avocations when he's not thinking about computers. John grew up in his younger years in the summers in western North Carolina, and a town called Linville, the golf course nearby where his parents lived there, brothers and sisters lived there. And John played a lot of golf then, still likes to play a lot of golf, and skiing. Those are the 2 main avocations that I know John does. Probably halfway down I know in the middle of the golf course he'll start talking about computers. Probably halfway down a ski run, which I don't do, he starts talking about computers too. I don't know. What's it like to work with John? Well, you don't, at least my experience is you don't work with John. You're in doing your thing, whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. And every couple of times a day or every 3rd day, John wanders in your office and then starts doing things on the blackboard. And you sit there and smile and you kind of think that you're supposed to know that. You edge him on and maybe once in a while you'll understand what he's doing. But he's talking about some other kind of thought process that he'd been talking to somebody down the hall. And then finally he'll be doing something that's just exactly what yours is. And we'll do this all over again. Working with John is a unique kind of thing. The typical experience, if I could think of a day, is that you're sitting at your desk or wherever it is doing the thing you're supposed to do. And a couple of times a day or every 3rd day, John walks into your office and starts writing on the blackboard. Usually you have some idea what it is. Most of the time you don't have any idea what he's talking about. And sooner or later, you realize that he is doing something that fits into what you're doing and is so far ahead of what you're doing, and you're able to catch up to him. It's not like working with other people where you sit down and really discuss things. John, he just seems to understand it all much sooner. I remember last summer, I guess it was, John started explaining my PhD thesis to me. That's the kind of guy he is. Oh my! One of the there's lots of stories about John Cocke, and there's a watch story. John had, I suppose he still has it. Who knows? A very expensive Philippe Petit watch, and we were in. You want to cut this? Yeah.
I like that.
A watch story. I guess everybody has a story about John's watches. This is in Yorktown in the 60s somewhere. John has, I presume he still has it, a very expensive Philippe Petite watch. And he couldn't find it. So he asked several of us to help him look for it. And we looked and we looked. We looked in his desk and we looked in the drawers. We looked everywhere. Where did we find it? We found it in the can that keeps the coffee. How this watch got in there, I don't know. John explained it by saying that he wanted to get a cup of coffee and he was bringing the watch to the jeweler to get it repaired. Oh yeah, he will keep talking to you. I mean, if you're supposed to go to a meeting or you're supposed to go home or where, that's irrelevant. John just talks. If you're walking out, you walk out. Or if you've been sitting at a bar drinking beer, which John did occasionally, and you're getting a little tired, John just keeps on going. He walks right up to your room with you, keeps talking about this wonderful new theory he's got. Yeah, he's persistent. The first time I ever met John Cocke was I had been with IBM for a few years in the research part of IBM, but not associated with John. The classical sort of IBM, you know, wingtip shoes and all that junk. And I got my office, and it turns out that John was on one side, and another woman, Lane Boehm, who has since passed away, was on the other side. John is, I guess a nice way to say it was a roue, a little bit different than other people. Well, not only John was like that on this side, but Elaine was like this on the other side. So I come in and I sit down in this office, and here are these two. And this was different. This was not the IBM that I was used to. This, in that first week, with John coming in and Elaine coming in, and then them going into each other's offices and wandering around, cigarettes dangling out of their mouth, maybe 2 or 3 cigarettes going at the same time. It was a different introduction to IBM than I had been used to my previous 2 years in the company. Oh, God. Yeah, great start. Just a great start, meeting him that way. And I've known him now for, I don't know, 25 years.
It seems that most people seem to hold it.
John's a very kind person. He's a very gentle person. I don't think that's immediately obvious when you meet John, but he really has no ill will towards anybody or anything, as far as I can tell. I'm not trying to say that he doesn't hold opinions. He certainly holds opinions, and he holds opinions about people and the caliber of their work and things like that. But from a humanitarian point of view, no, he's just a absolutely super, very unique kind of person that way. Gentle is, I guess gentle in the word gentleman is very appropriate for John. The program we worked on in the West Coast was called ACS, Advanced Computing Systems, which Jack Bertram put together and gathered the people. The object at the time was to build a machine that was 1,000 times faster than the then prevalent 7090 class machines, which would have made it an incredibly powerful computer. As a matter of fact, it would rank up with some of the high-speed machines that we have today. A group of about 10 people moved from Yorktown and Poughkeepsie, and others came from San Jose to work on it. The idea was as high performance on a single instruction stream as was possible. There were an enormous number of new concepts that were brought in during ACS from a machine organization point of view, from a compiler point of view, from a fixed head disk point of view, and from a circuitry and circuit design point of view. Many of these really have just shown up in computers that have made it to the marketplace within the last 4 or 5 years. So there was a gap of maybe 15 years from when these ideas obviously didn't make it to the marketplace, but were reasonably well tried out until other machines were needed to be powerful enough to bring them forward. The idea was basically a machine for the scientific community. The Los Alamos and Livermore, those kind of people were our main customers in those days. It would have worked well, I believe, on the more classical IBM data processing kind of equipment that we have, but that was the idea of the machine in those days. Well, there was the East Coast branch and there was the West Coast branch. The East Coast branch was very happy that it didn't fly because their branch flew. I think yes. I think many of the people were very disappointed that it didn't happen. We had an amazing crew of people out there. We have, I would guess, and I'd have to really go back and look, I would guess there are probably now about 5 or 6 IBM Fellows. People have become IBM Fellows since then. We've had some people leave IBM and become presidents of major corporations in the business. Just an absolutely incredible group of people. I've worked with a lot of very talented people in my 30 years in the company. I have never had a group of such talented people all in one place as that ACS group was. I think if they asked us to make pens, we could have made the world's best pen. It was just a great group of people. I'm terrific.
You really are.
I really am.
You are so easy.
Yeah.
Stories.
There's thousands of John Cocke stories, not all of which are adaptable to this medium that we are now using. More are adaptable to martinis and beers. And I think probably some should be left. I think some should be left for that medium.